pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, 1.07 is the student report, and today we do have Irene Thomas. If you would, welcome.
Hi everyone, I'm Irene Thomas. I'm a senior at Suffolk High School. There are tons of fun things going on at the high school. This week from September 19th to the 23rd is Spirit Week, and it ends up with homecoming on Saturday. So yesterday the day was College Apparel Day, and during unit lunch we had college tables present, and a lot of seniors and underclassmen were interested in taking part. Today was Suffolk Spirit Day, and there was the Club Expo where 50 clubs came out and showed what they were doing or what they were representing during unit lunch, and many of the students got in the spirit and embraced the Mountie Pride. Tomorrow is We the People Wednesday, and where students dress up in red, white, and blue and show their patriotism. And Thursday is Jersey Day, where students wear their Suffolk jersey from a sport, or they wear their favorite sports team jersey. And during unit lunch is extended lunch, where there will be inflatables outside, snow cone machines, popcorn, all kinds of things. And the last day on Friday is Class Color Day, where there's many events going on, like team handball tournament and the very anticipated pep rally between the grades. The Spirit Cup will be also awarded on that day. Homecoming football game will be against North Rockland that Friday, and homecoming is on that Saturday. The tickets will be sold during this whole week during unit lunch by the USO student government for $20, and the theme is all around the world in one night. Thursday is senior parent night by Guidance at 7 p.m. The 27th is financial aid night, also sponsored by Guidance. On October 1st is the SATs offered at the high school, and the second back to school night was last night, and there was tons of parents coming out, talking to their teachers, their students, their daughter or son's teachers, and getting information. And yearbook is always looking for sales or advertisement, just in addition. Thank you.
To be a high school student this week. Oh, great. Thank you so much. All right, 1.08, minutes of the regular meeting of September 6, 2016. Chair would entertain a motion to accept those minutes as so stated. Clark, any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstentions? Superintendent's comments?
None at this time.
Public participation. This is public participation as to action items only. Those are the items listed behind me. 2.01 through 2.10, possibly? Through 2.10, this session will last 30 minutes, 3 minutes per speaker. Please step up to the microphone, speak clearly, address your comments to the president of the board. And just again, pursuant to policy, no discussion or specific comments regarding any district personnel. Those are policies 12, 14, 132. Action items only. Okay, seeing none, I'll close this portion of the meeting. All right, action items. Nobody requested anything to be pulled? Right, nothing to be pulled. Excellent. So, I will use the consent agenda with respect to action items 2.01 through 2.10. Chair would entertain a motion to accept those as so stated. Mark? Amani? It's easier for the record. All right, Amani, Clark, you got that answer? Okay.
That was good.
And I know, right?
Oh, yeah.
He's a little talking too fast. Right? Clark doesn't. Any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? 3 point
Karen, are you leading? Leading.
Leading. Sorry. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Taryn Rivera. I have the privilege of being your supervisor of elementary special services. I'm here tonight to share a presentation with you on English language learners on our district. I'm joined by a couple of the members of the E&L team. I have Amy Giacino from Viola Elementary, Nancy Rodriguez, Suffern High School, and Catherine, I call her Katie, Catherine Mercury from Montebello Elementary. So before we dive in, we have a really great presentation for you with a lot of information. There are a ton of acronyms, and the state keeps changing them, and I'm pretty sure it's to see if we're paying attention. It gets confusing. So I'm going to briefly go through some of them, and these are not all of them, but just so that we're sort of speaking the same language. ESL refers to English as a second language. This is a term used to describe students. LEP, Limited English Proficient, means the same thing as an ESL student. A SIFE student is a student with interrupted formal education. L is the more commonly used term. It's an English language learner. That's the one that you probably heard more frequently. And a newer one, EB, is emergent bilingual. That's one that we're hearing the state is moving towards. The other acronyms toward the right are ones that actually refer to the service and the teacher. So ENL is English as a new language, but we sometimes refer to teachers as ENL teachers. And TESOL, this one is a mouthful. It's Teachers of English of Second and Other Languages. And now teachers are also referred to as TESOL teachers. Okay. Can I test you? Okay. So how does one get this designation? Who is an L? How do you become an L? So there are two different ways that you can become an L, two different types of Ls. You can be a simultaneous bilingual, so that means that you are raised hearing two languages, a native language and another language at the same time, and each language builds upon the other language. You can be a sequential bilingual, which means that you generally heard one language, your native language, and you later on at some point have another language introduced, okay? With either one of these, you're trying to acquire language, two languages, or more at the same time.
We wanted to share some facts with you about English language learners, otherwise known as ELs. If you take a look at the first bullet, you might find it interesting to know that there are more than 215,000 English language learners attending school in New York State, and of those, 61.5% were born in the US. And in 2014, only 3% of ELs in grades 3 through 8 achieved proficient scores on the New York State ELA exam. Did you know that there are over 175 different languages spoken by ELs in the New York State? We have a very diverse group of English language learners here in Ramapo Central District. And as you can see by the slide, these are the various languages that are spoken by our students. And as our school year continues, we will add more languages to this list. And a majority of our students are Spanish-speaking ELs, although they do come from various countries. Since they come from these various countries, they speak different dialects of Spanish. Here we have the total number of ELs in the past 10 years in our district, and as you can see from the chart, the numbers have been steadily increasing. And this year, our numbers are at our highest, and there are still students who are continuing to enter our district, and students who are still being screened. And if we take a look at this chart here we have a breakdown of that scope, focusing in from 2013 to 2016. And in just 3 years, our numbers have increased by almost 100 students, as you can see in the first row. If we take a look at our new Ls, these are our students that are entering the district, and those numbers have increased as well. But when we take a look at our tested out numbers, we notice that in 2016, the numbers have decreased. And this may be due to the fact that these students are coming in with little to no English, and they're just not ready to test out of the program. I know some of you might be thinking, well, how do I identify a student as an English language learner? And here's how. According to the New York State Regulations, CR Part 154, the screening process begins with the home language questionnaire. Once another language is checked off on that questionnaire, the student will go through a series of interviews as well as the family to obtain more information. If the ENL teacher determines that there may be difficulties with the English language, the student is given the NICETEL, and this is our New York State identification test for English language learners. This test provides their proficiency level, and those proficiency levels determine how much service hours they will receive.
Thank you. As far as those service hours are concerned, this is determined by the state. This is determined by CR Part 154. The students will receive anywhere between 550 minutes per week down to 90 minutes per week. That service can come in various types. Standalone service is the teaching of the language of English by an ENL teacher. Integrated services combine an ENL teacher with a content area teacher so that the students are more focused on the content of what they are learning. As the students become more proficient, those numbers change a little bit, and there's some flexibility in how many standalone minutes, how many integrated minutes. The exit strategy is determined by the NICETEL test that is given in May. That is how they exit. When they exit, however, it's good to know that they actually still receive testing modifications, they get extended time, stuff like that for 2 years. Now, the types of proficiency, language proficiency, are 2, and this is for anybody learning a language. BICS, Basic Interpersonal Communication Skills. How much is that red 5-speed Honda? Oh no, I can't afford that. It's how much is the sandwich? How do I get from Suffern train station to New York City? It's basic communication language. CALPS, however. CALPS is Cognitive Academic Language Proficiency. This takes a long time. This is the language of school. These are words like quotient. This is words like mitosis. This is a word like analyze, define, determine, multiply. It can take anywhere between 5 and 7 years for students to become proficient in CALPS, and that is what they are tested on when they take the NICETEL test at every spring. That is why sometimes it's hard to get to test out of L status. Now, these are the 5 levels determined by New York State. There's been a switch in a couple years. These are the 5 levels. Entering, emerging, transitioning, expanding, or commanding. I'd like to ask anybody in the room, where do you think most of our students fall? In which one of these categories?
When they first show up.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, not when they first show up. Last year's results, when we tested all of our students with the NICETEL test, in what level do you think most of them landed? I'm just asking to see if anybody wants. I hear emerging. I feel like a game show host right now. Well, you can see that most of Round Post Central students fall in the expanding range. Do want to point this out. At the elementary level, most of the students are in expanding, followed by transitioning. At the secondary level, most of our students are emerging, followed by transitioning. Part of that, again, is that the secondary CALP language is much more probably difficult than the elementary Celt language. So that's where our students fall. And finally, for my end, what I just want to make sure we understand is that our students are coming to us with needs that are perhaps different than what we had. Many of our students have traditions and cultures where we can't figure it out. They are told to not look at an adult because to look at an adult is an insult. So when we're asking our kids to look at us as we speak and try to teach them to pronounce, they don't know what to do because they've been told not to look at the adult, yet we're standing there asking them to look at the adult. Many of our students, especially at the high school level, have come into our country without a parent or a guardian. These are unaccompanied minors who are now living in the village of suffering without parents or guardians. The trauma these students have faced is vast. And these are just things that we have to be aware of as we are teaching our students.
So, as I'm sure we're all aware, the population of Brown Coast Central is definitely changing. We're welcoming more and more families from other countries. As you can see from Amy's slides, our numbers have been going up, and we have a responsibility as a district to teach these students and to provide them an education in the least restricted environment and with the best possible programs that are available. A lot of these students are coming to us with limited education. Maybe they haven't had the support that many of our families that were born and raised here have, and they're not familiar with our education styles. So the question is, what are we doing as a district to meet these students where they are and to accommodate them and to do the best possible job we can to teach them? And so here's what's going on. So as far as professional development, we've hired, obviously, more ENL teachers because we have to. We have to provide them their service minutes. We've hired bilingual ENL teachers. As far as PD, professional development, I'm sure you've all heard mention of Lucy Calkins and Readers and Writers Workshop. So many of our teachers have attended training at Columbia and in the city on how to adapt the units of study to teach to these English language learners how to make it work for them. We've also provided PD within our building, so the ENL teachers have been responsible for providing their own PD to their colleagues. That's part of the mandate as well. And then we move to instructional support. We have coaching. There's going to be a coach that's going to come in and work with us and observe our teaching that Taryn has set up. That will all kind of come into place very soon. Consultants, we have some new computer programs and technology. For example, Imagine Learning. It's a language and literacy support program that accelerates the learning of English. It has a bilingual component, it has reading and literacy components, and we're going to be receiving training on that program very soon as well. So it's really important that we are proactive as a district to really take into account our changing population, and part of that includes thinking ahead of bilingual education. And that's really important because the mandate says that if you have 20 or more students in a grade level across the district, we have to provide some type of bilingual education for them. So the beginning steps of that process is really just setting up a bilingual panel, which would consist of teachers, administrators, parents, a variety of people that would meet together approximately 4 to 5 times per year and to talk about what this program would look like, how it would be sustained, and any impacts that it may have on the district. So that's kind of the phase where we're at now. And then that kind of leads me into the really great opportunity this is creating for our district. And I feel very passionately about this. There's been so much research that has been put together on the bilingual brain and the benefits of a person who is able to speak more than one language. There have been advantages in mental health. There have been studies that have done on job performance, college and career readiness, all kinds of studies. And I just want to talk a little bit about what the research says. For a long time, there was a misconception that if you were learning 2 languages at one time, it would in some way create a deficit or delay a child. And more recent studies have shown that this in fact is not the case. There's all kinds of studies that have been done that show that babies in fact, they have the ability to compartmentalize and to actually differentiate between the 2 languages from birth on. So early exposure to 2 languages does not in any way have a negative impact on the student. In fact, it's the opposite. Second language, learning a second language increases brain density. There have been all kinds of scans and studies on that to prove that. And as an adult, adults who speak a second language have better opportunities in the job market. There's even studies that show that, I believe it was Rosetta Stone did a study, the increased income and salary are higher for individuals who speak more than 1 language. So all the evidence and the research is there. So not only are we obligated to provide bilingual education with our changing population, but we're also providing our students with a gift, because this could really be the difference between a student that has, a blue-collar job versus a white-collar job, and the ability to support maybe their families at home and have opportunities that prior generations never had.
So with that,
So in conclusion, 1 language sets you in a corridor for life. 2 languages open every door along the way. We hope that you've enjoyed our presentation. As a team, we see our L's as students that bring a very valuable gift. We hope that we've shown you that today. If you have any questions, our information is here, our emails. You feel free to email us or catch us afterward. We're happy to answer questions. Oh, yes.
Thank you very, very much. The great presentation. And I agree with I know somebody whose children actually speak English and Italian. And there's nothing more amazing than seeing a 3-year-old speak English with an English accent, with an American accent, but lives in Italy and speaks Italian, but you wouldn't be able to tell. It's truly amazing. I appreciate all the work you do. Thank you. I don't know if any board members have any questions with respect to the presentation.
Clarification questions. Thank you again, which is awesome. And I totally agree with the research. On the chart, increased enrollment of students, you had explained that students not ready to test out of programs. Can you just clarify that last cell, why the numbers were lower?
Yeah. This is the slide?
Yeah.
So what we saw was that the pattern, as you can see, the numbers kept increasing. The number of L's coming in keeps increasing, and the number of new L's, so the ones that are already designated as L's and then new L's keep increasing. However, each year you could see the numbers more or less were in the 30s, or close to the 30 range. And then this past year, there was a drop. So there's a couple of reasons for that. We're sort of speculating as to why this happened. Part of it is that there has been a change to the test. That's a fact. The test has gotten more difficult. They're trying to align things more with Common Core. So it's more difficult to test out of this exam. And also, it depends on, as I mentioned in the beginning, I had mentioned there are sequential L's and there are simultaneous L's. A piece of that is, are the students that are taking this exam students that just came from another country, as opposed to the data from previous years where these are students that might have been tested out, have been here for a few years. So that could be the difference in that number.
And my question on that, they have the option to test out annually or after accomplishing certain tasks?
Yes, they take the nicest slat yearly.
Every year?
Every year.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else? No, excellent, thank you. Next, hold on. 3.02. This would be a report on pre-kindergarten. Weber and company.
First, I'd like to thank the ENL team for their wonderful presentation. We're going to talk a little bit about pre-K tonight, and I'm going to be joined by Jackie Budner and Renee Dawson, both from Viola Elementary School. I want to thank Jackie and Renee for their enthusiasm and focus on this topic. We've been talking about it for probably about 9 months now. And they've been part of a lot of the conversation, so thank you both for joining me tonight. This is going to be a little trip on a little history of pre-K, talk about how things are currently done, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what could be in our future. I do want to emphasize that this is sort of visionary, this is not operational. So we don't have any answers to any operational questions right now. This is really to share a vision and to see, really give you an opportunity to think about it. So our current pre-K process involves any parent of a 4-year-old child applies for pre-kindergarten through Child Care Resources. I'll talk a little bit about Child Care Resources on the next slide and all that they do, but there's an application process. When pre-K first started 18 or 19 years ago, there was an income component to it. There no longer is. So it's open to anyone with a 4-year-old child. Parents fill out the application through Child Care Resources. Child Care Resources then collects all the applications, checks residency, checks immunization, checks all the things that they're supposed to check, and then puts the kids into a lottery for pre-K. And the reason they get put into a lottery is because the state gives us a grant that covers universal pre-K for 95 students. That's our district allotment, is 95 students. We're now currently in our 3rd year of an additional statewide grant that allows for full-day pre-K for 20 students, and we have determined that we prioritize that full-day UPK for 20 students who come from low-income homes and have limited English proficiency. So those are both state grants. The first one is the one that everyone gets. The second one is one that we specifically applied for with the assistance of Child Care Resources. And then in addition, we use some of our federal Title I grant funds to supply additional UPK spots. Because of the way our Title I program is set up, with Connor and Sloatsburg being our only Title I schools, that money can only be used for students from Connor and Sloatsburg, but what happens is by using that money, it opens up some of the slots in the original 95. In doing this, for the last 3 years, we've been able to provide a pre-K placement for every child who applied in the district. So for every child that completed the application, or whose parents completed the application, for the last 3 years we've been able to provide a UPK placement. All of those UPK placements are in what we call community-based organizations, and you're familiar with many of them. Y Beginning, Sloatsburg, Y Beginning Suffern, Sacred Heart, KinderCare, those all count as community-based organizations. In addition, with the Title I money, we do provide some additional services, and these, again, are to support language acquisition. But those aren't placements. I mentioned Child Care Resources. I want to go back to them for a minute. Child Care Resources is a nonprofit organization in Rockland County. It provides a shared service model. It serves 7 of the districts in Rockland administering UPK. East Ramapo chooses to administer their own UPK. All the other districts use Child Care Resources. And they literally do soup to nuts, alpha to omega for UPK. They do the contracting with the sites. They do the contracting with the districts. You've approved many of their contracts recently. They do all of the marketing and recruitment, and that goes both ways. They do the marketing and the recruitment of the UPK providers. They also do the marketing and the recruitment for the families. They go around, their application process starts in January, they go around in February, they hold meetings all over the county. They consistently, in our district, hold one at Connor. They advertise it, they bring families in to make everyone aware of the program. Then they also do the program administration. So meaning they do all the paperwork with state ed. They fill out all the grant applications. They do all the communicating with state ed. They visit the actual sites, they send their specialists in, they do the monthly visits to the sites. Literally, they do soup to nuts. They do have a very significant expertise in the area of early childhood education. This shows a little history and our current situation with UPK participation. If you look at the bottom first, where I have the last 3 years, where I mentioned that we were able to provide a UPK placement for every child that applied. These are the numbers. Just for interest, I've included the size of the kindergarten class the following year and a percentage of students participating in UPK. Prior to that, we had been using we didn't have the statewide grant yet. The statewide grant started, the full day grant started in 2014-15. That was the first year it was available. So there was instantly, we were able to add 20 more kids there. In the prior 3 years, we did use Title I funds, but our Title I allotment was significantly smaller. We had an increase in Title I starting in 2014-15. And so there wasn't quite enough funds. There were also more applicants in those years as the incoming kindergartens were bigger. So we've been able to go from 40% of students being serviced through pre-K to mid-60s%. This year, every child that applied, again, has been offered a placement. Sometimes people don't take the placement, but it is offered. And this is our enrollment for this year. You'll see in the big chart includes our highest participation placements, but it also includes the ones that are within our district, with the exception of Campus Fun and Learn, which is the one at RCC, which is very close to being in our district. So these are our local ones and have our highest enrollment. We do have several kids. Because Child Care Resources is a shared service, a child can actually go to UPK anywhere in the county. And it counts. Any site that is a UPK site for any district of the 7 districts in the county, they can go there. So often, people may choose one close to their work or whatever. And so that's why some of them are a little further away. I talked a little bit about full day versus half day. The full day UPK program, the requirements are that it's at least 5 hours plus lunch, and there are 18 students, a teacher, and an aide. The class size may increase to 20, but if it increases beyond 18, a second aide needs to be added to the class. For half-day pre-K, which is with the exception of the full-day grant, all other children are placed in a half-day program. It's 2.5-hour program, 18 with the same ratio, 18 students to 1 teacher to 1 aide. Last spring, we did a survey, and we asked families of current kindergartners and current pre-K families. So this was given in June to families that kids were finishing pre-K going to kindergarten and kids who were finishing kindergarten and going to first grade. And we asked parents a few questions, and 94% of the parents who answered their child attended pre-K, with 57% being participating in UPK. For those children that were not enrolled in pre-K, which was a small number, you can see there were 9 responses, half of them were either home with a parent or home with another family member. We also asked the question about wraparound care. What wraparound care means is they have before care or after care. So there's pre-K where someone, a parent, a grandparent, drops the kid off for 2.5 hours, picks them up 2.5 hours later. We have other facilities like a KinderCare or a Goddard where the children can stay all day. There is UPK for 2.5 hours within the day, but the before and after are what parents pay additionally for, and that's what the wraparound care refers to. So we asked parents about wraparound care, and 60% of the parents who responded to the survey said they did not use wraparound care. We also asked parents about how satisfied they were with their child's preparation. So the first question asked if parents felt the child was prepared for kindergarten academically. 90% answered yes. When asked if they felt their child was prepared for kindergarten socially and emotionally, again, 90% answered yes. In terms of the question, they feel that they had pre-K options locally that met their needs? Only 64% of parents responded yes. I'm stuck there. All right. Which brings us to a little bit more about pre-K. So I invite Jackie and Renee.
No, I'm going to shake, so I can't click. So there's no click. Slow clicking on it.
Okay, so why preschool? Research in neuroscience indicates that 85% of brain development occurs by age 3, and 90% occurs between birth and age 5. Language proficiency is a key predictor of school success. Children benefit from engaging in rich vocabulary through literature and conversations with multiple exchanges back and forth. It increases oral language and vocabulary development for speaking, listening, and comprehension.
Student understanding of letter and sound relationships, along with rhyming, also improve the readiness skills for kindergarten. When students enter kindergarten without these readiness skills, the students are already behind. As we heard in the last presentation, our ELO population is growing, and students who have this prior knowledge enter kindergarten with the foundation skills in place. A large and growing body of research show that investing in high-quality pre-K education yields benefits for children, schools, and communities.
Pre-K offers valuable experiences in problem solving, rich play, and collaboration. And you'll hear the term rich play all throughout this presentation because it is the core of preschool. We had the opportunity to visit some really wonderful high-quality pre-K programs. One classroom was studying the Arctic, and the students had the opportunity to collaborate to engineer an igloo. And I tell you, it was fantastic. They had to work together, they had to problem solve, the teacher, with the teacher's support, they created this pictorial how-to, and it was step-by-step of how the students actually put together this igloo. And it was fantastic. And I write how-tos in first grade. And it really, it was close to blowing us out of the water. It really was. It was fabulous. So the main emphasis of this is that the children are collaborating and they are working together. So pre-K, this is also something that we really noticed a trend through most of the high-quality programs that we did visit. The children had the opportunity to self-regulate. And this is really important for transitions and for students for brain breaks to allow them to move and to get up. So actually, I could use this one right now, because I'm a little bit.
I use it for practice, so let's do it together.
Okay. So what the children do is they visualize, or they have actually a picture, and I think you have it in your packets as well. So basically, it's a picture of a flower, and there's a candle.
It's in a folder.
It's in
on the left-hand side.
Okay, so there's a picture of a flower, and there's a picture of a candle. So the students have to actually smell the flower. So they're taking in their deep breath, and then they're letting it out to blow out the candle. And it does also, it helps the body relax, it helps your mind relax, it gets you ready to really, to focus and get ready for the next test. Also through music, through rhyme, through movement breaks, the students learn to attend for longer periods of time.
Research has shown that toddlers who attended high-quality preschool had fewer behavior problems throughout their lives compared to toddlers that attended lower-quality preschool. This may be attributed to the fact that toddlers were exposed and taught self-regulation skills and communication skills prior to entering kindergarten. Children have more advanced math and language skills and come to school knowing how school works. Students know the expectations of schools, the transition, and the routines.
So again, the play-based part of the curriculum is really the soul of it, of the high-quality education. It also lays that strong foundation for science, technology, engineering, and math. And here we also, in Grammar Central, we include art for STEAM. That's what we would include.
I'm just going to provide a little information on student achievement related to pre-K. In the eSchool data, we track students' pre-K experience either as a part of universal pre-K. We indicate if they've attended pre-K with a private provider. We indicate if we have no information, they didn't provide information about their pre-K experience or lack of, or that they have no formal pre-K experience. So we just pulled, as a sample, pulled the end of year first grade report cards for all of last spring's first graders. So all of the first graders who finished in June of 2016, we pulled their report cards. And we looked at the percentage of 3s and 4s earned versus the percentage of 1s and 2s earned. So the orange bars that you see are the percentage of 3s and 4s earned by students in each category. The blue bars show the percentage of 1s and 2s earned by students in each category. So it's clearly that at the end of first grade, we are seeing a difference in the performance of our students who participated in pre-K, whether it was UPK or a private provider, versus those who did not participate in pre-K.
What would a high-quality pre-K look like? Highly qualified, vested Brown Central teachers with experience in early childhood grades.
It would look like classrooms that focus on social and emotional development, physical development, academics, and again, that rich play. The rich play would be accessible to students, as the classroom would have a wide range of choices and possibilities so children could invent and extend their own play through role-playing, through movement, and through natural and man-made materials.
It would be a safe and nurturing environment between teachers and families where children feel successful and supportive. Families will be involved in the class community and will understand how elementary school can support their child's learning.
And again, high-quality classrooms would have intentional teaching. And this actually came up in a lot of the research that we did conduct together and on the site visits as well. The planning of curriculum with the targeted centers that was thoughtful and purposeful. So for example, we're going to show you a little demonstration that we observed. Yes. So this actually happened in one of the classes that we observed. The teacher, she was doing a lesson on the letter J. So the students elicited the sound and they were practicing the sound. So they created jets. Okay, so I had a little help engineering my jet from a teacher. But they learned J, so they had to practice. So their gross motor skills, they were throwing, and then they were eliciting the sound as they grew the airplane. So they said jump, jump. So I'm going to try to hit my target. So I have to distinguish between the J and the C. So not only are they throwing, they're eliciting the sound, but they're also differentiating between the appropriate letter that it matches.
There's a letter J and
There's a J and a C. So I'm going to try to.
That's what I call it now.
I'm going to try to hit my target. I'm going to try my best.
That was pretty close. So we give it to you.
Okay. But it was interesting because, and then another sensor for J, at another table, the teacher had a thing of jelly beans and a 10 frame. And the students were practicing their one-to-one correspondence, counting out the numbers, counting out the jelly beans, holding on to the number, which is all part of what we do in kindergarten with Kathy Richardson. They have to count out a set, they have to count out a quantity, they have to hold on to that number. So they really were laying the foundation for what we do in school.
And they use that 10 frame.
Oh yes, which I used today in my first grade class.
So it's something that we get used to in pre-K, all the way to kindergarten and first grade. So something that would be new to them. It would be new to them in preschool, but then would build on it. And also, I would like to add on that all these centers are differentiated. The teachers are at each center progress monitoring. They have checklists. They're analyzing the data. They're planning goals. And it's not only academic, but they're looking at the social piece too, and the student transition. Any type of notes, and that's how they plan their lessons.
Another thing that we observed in the classrooms was the use of multisensory teaching strategies. So for example, the students were learning the letter S. So they had different tactile materials for the letter S. Let's say they had spaghetti, they had sand, they had tactile letters, so they had the sand tray there. Forming the letter S, making the sound, building with spaghetti. They would be slithering on the floor like a snake, making the sound. So you're really incorporating all of the senses into that experience, which makes it fun, which adds that element of that, again, that rich play for the students. And the students are immersed in that letter through their everyday participation in class. It's really wonderful.
There's hands-on learning through exploration in various centers like home living and a science center, which all would embed opportunities for rich questioning, which we've had PD. Thank you, Mrs. Druss. I'm being observed too, just so you know. Okay, so an example would be a classroom, you like that, Mr. Walker? A classroom may be studying hibernation. So a teacher might pass around an ice cube for the children to explore. And then the teacher might add a layer of Crisco, follow me, on the hand, and then pass the ice cube around and place it on top of the hand. At this point, the students will share their findings and the teacher will compare their experience to the experience of a bear in hibernation, the Crisco acting like as a layer of fat. Interesting. You saw that.
So why should we have pre-K in Ramapo Central? We believe this early learning program will draw families back to Ramapo Central and bring new families into the district.
We believe it will foster Mountie pride and create a partnership with families from the beginning.
We believe it will increase access to high-quality pre-K, since 4 preschools have closed in our district, in our local area.
We believe Ramapo Central School District will highlight our commitment to educate for personal excellence and promote our reputation as an innovative, top-performing school district.
We know the bridge between pre-K and kindergarten is stronger with the pre-K in the building. The pre-K teachers would have the kindergarten teachers and vice versa. They'd be there to support each other and to help each other.
Teachers will have access to building-based support, such as the ENL teacher, the speech pathologist, the occupational therapist, social workers, literacy and math specialists.
Students will have access to art, music, and PE.
We know that Ramapo Central has a very low teacher turnover rate, unlike some of the community-based organizations, as Ramapo Central teachers are vested.
And lastly, there will be increased professional development opportunities as we value and seek out these opportunities.
So I'm going to change gears a little bit and talk a little bit about our funding. So I mentioned earlier that our current pre-K placements are all done through funded programs. The first one one of the ones I mentioned was the full day grant. That's for 20 students. That's a $200,000 grant from the state. Of that $200,000, currently $7,000 per student goes to our pre-K provider. $2,000 per student goes to a minority woman business-owned enterprise. That is a grant requirement. And so for us, that is done through supplies. We have a supplier that our pre-K providers use that is a licensed minority woman business-owned enterprise. And then $1,000 goes to Child Care Resources. For our half-day UPK students, and this is whether we're talking about the 95 students that are in the initial state grant or the additional students we pay for through Title I, currently $2,400 per student goes to the pre-K provider and $300 per student goes to Child Care Resources. I mentioned earlier about the additional research services. This is $300 per qualifying student through Title I. And those, again, are students who may still need language support who didn't qualify in the 20 students for the full day. So when we think about that funding, there we go. When we think about that funding and look at the cost of a class in Ramapo Central, we have two scenarios. We have a half-day class and a full-day class. I'm going to talk about the half-day class first. Notice I put here that it's 36 students because it's 18 students in the morning section and it's 18 students in the afternoon section. So that's where the 36 students comes from because they're each going for half a day. So it's 18 in the morning, 18 in the afternoon, and then one teacher and one aide. The grant funding would provide $86,000 towards that. The staff expense, this includes benefits. This is not just salary. This is salary plus benefits for a Ramapo Central teacher and a Ramapo Central aide. Comes to $194,000. And so beyond the funding that comes from the grant, the district would need to include $108,000 per class from the district budget. That's if we run a half-day class. For a full day class, which remember the full day program was 20 students, but if you also recall, if we put 20 students in, we have to put 2 aides. So if we keep it at 18 students, the allotment for the full day is a bigger, much higher, it's more than double what the half day is. And so that allotment we would get is 126,000. The teacher and aide cost is the same, and so the difference would be a 68,605. I will say that we can only run one class at this cost because the grant only covers 20 students. So if we have 18 in this class, we don't have any funding to run another one. The funding would have to come from another source. So a little bit about the UPK timeline. This is important to know just because in terms of planning, if we are going to move forward with this, we do need to be cognizant of time. So the UPK process starts in late January. Child Care Resources releases the UPK applications. In February, Child Care Resources hosts their information centers throughout the county. As I mentioned earlier, this has historically included one at Connor. At the end of March, the UPK applications are due to Child Care Resources. During April and May, there's a review of the applications, make sure everything's in order, residency, immunizations, all those things, and the lottery takes place. The participants are notified in late May of the lottery results for both full and half day, and then over the summer we determine Title I slots. And that's why some people don't get notified till the summer. Sometimes they get waitlisted when they find out in May, and then they get notified in July or August, oh, now we have an opening for you. And that's how we're able, as I said, in the last 3 years, to offer everybody a spot. Sometimes it doesn't happen in May. It takes over the summer for that to happen. So this timeline is important because the process for Child Care Resources starts in late January. So, and our budget process also starts in the winter. So our timeline, we're really looking like we would need to know in November if we're planning for this. If we're going to do something related to pre-K, we would need to really know by November. Just some background information. Historically in Rockland County, when UPK first started, North Rockland did run their own UPK. They ran that program for 4 or 5 years. It's now discontinued and they use Child Care Resources. South Orangetown ran an early childhood program, which was an integrated program for special ed and general ed students. That's also been discontinued and they use Child Care Resources. Nanuet currently has a community-based organization that runs a UPK site in one of their buildings. So they're not Nanuet employees, they're employees of the community-based organization. They rent the space. Similarly, our Why Beginning Sloatsburg program takes place at Sloatsburg Elementary School, but it's a community-based organization using our space. In Clarkstown has their own child care facility. It's not a pre-K, it is literally a child care. Babies, infants can go there. It is specifically developed to benefit their employees. It's part of their contract, and it's fee-based, and it does not participate in UPK. So it's a different, just a different function and structure. So some of the questions and considerations that have come up in our conversations about thinking about bringing pre-K into Ramapo Central. One question is, will it increase overall pre-K enrollment? Will it get 65% to a higher number? We've made progress getting from 40% of our kids in pre-K to getting 60% in pre-K. Will it increase it? We don't know. That's something we'll have to find out. Will it increase interest for young families to choose Ramapo Central? We'd like to believe it will. We don't have any evidence to say that it will. This is just a question, can Title I funds be used if the program is located at a school other than RP Connor or Sloatsburg? We think it can, but we don't know that for sure. Will lack of transportation be an impediment? That we know is an issue, particularly in our full day program. We know that transportation is an issue. If you go all the way back to our full day chart, you will see that the students that are in our full day program are for the most part in programs that are accessible to downtown Suffern. They're at KinderCare, they're at Sacred Heart, and one at Goddard. So that is something we want to keep in mind. And then what will be the impact if we were to offer pre-K in our buildings? What would be the impact to our community-based organizations, many of which we have wonderful relationships with? So in terms of next steps, we're sort of have some thinking for you to do. We could stay with the status quo. Right now, we are providing pre-kindergarten services through our CBOs for every child who's applying. We've been able to do that for the last 3 years. Option 2, we look at maximizing our grant funding to support district classes. And what this would mean was some students would still be in CBOs, some would be in the district, but we would maximize that grant funding from that chart I showed you where the full day class was $68,000 out of the operating budget, the half day class is $108,000. And I say 3 to 4 classes max here because then we start to top out of the 95 plus the Title I money. So that's gonna be somewhere in the 3 to 4 class range of where we would have that support of being able to use the grant monies. And then option 3 is to look at saying, you know what? We think pre-K is amazing. We want to maximize the availability of pre-K for every child. We want to guarantee every child a spot. We're done with the lottery. And that would involve some students in CBOs, because some people would still choose. Some people, remember, 60% used wraparound care, which means did not use wraparound care, which means 40% did. It's not real. Not every parent can drop their kid off for 2.5 hours and have somewhere for their child to go the rest of the day. So we would still have families who choose not to send their child here because they have other needs in their family. And so in option 3, where we maximize the availability, we guarantee a spot for every child. And for any classes that go beyond the amount that we can use the grant funding, the district would be responsible for the full operating cost of those classes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any board members have questions?
It's a lot to digest.
Yeah,
Whoa.
we may have questions later, so
Yeah.
we'll shoot
I
you
would anticipate
an email or we'll call. But Marlies?
I just have a clarifying question on one of the first slides, the UPK participation, where you show the years on the UPK applicants and then the percentage of kindergartners. Am I interpreting this correctly that each one of those UPK applicants went into the kindergartens, and that's why you're saying 64% were enrolled? No. So
No,
there
in fact,
were
they
some
very much did not.
UPKs that went to other districts or that went to other kindergartens.
In fact,
Okay.
because remember I gave you the grade 1 data?
Right.
So
no,
the
but I
grades
just wondering-
1 were in pre-K in 2013-14, and when we went and cross-listed those, we found, I think it was 23 of these 114 are not currently in our district. Some of them left after pre-K, some left after kindergarten, some just left this summer.
Okay, so those percentages are not necessarily for our
They are
district
not.
then?
They are not the same children.
Okay.
So in 2000, let's just do last year. In 2015-16, we had 143 kids apply for UPK and get it. This year we have 220 kids in kindergarten. Some of these 220 are some of these 143, but not necessarily all of them.
Come on.
So a couple of things. There was one phrase that I missed, the content, that the number of centers, some centers have closed. 4 centers have closed.
In the last couple of years, do you want to mention that?
What locations were those?
Temple Beth Ave.
Okay. Because of dropping enrollment or?
Some were, like Airborne Angels, for example, it was always trying to be, she wasn't getting money out of it. So it was like she had a daycare facility and then she decided to do pre-K, and that's where my child went, and then didn't stand, wasn't enough money for
Wasn't profitable.
At the same time.
The UPK stipend, the $2,700 per student, hasn't changed in the 19 years of the UPK program.
It's not enough for the girls. So there's no financial incentive to running them. Okay, and my other question was, I just want to make sure I'm clear on this, because that will really determine how we decide on this. If we were to run the half day, which seems to be financially, rewarding in terms of grant money, would we bus those kids to a daycare?
That's an operational decision that I mentioned earlier. We're sort of providing a vision without getting the operational details. Transportation would be an additional cost, and it would not be on the school bus that the other kids take because of timing, more than anything, because they're going home after 2.5 hours.
Right.
But it is an operational detail which we have not discussed.
Which is not in this calculation?
No.
Not in this.
It is not. Transportation is not included in any of the calculations.
Right. Something we need to account for and look into. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Matt?
The question that 220 in the last example. The 220 in your in your last example, that does not that's not completely synced with the 143, right?
Right, so this 220 is the number of students we had registered for kindergarten, I think it was 2 weeks ago. It might be slightly different now.
Okay.
The 143 is the number of kids who were in pre-K last year.
Right. Do we have the data for the actual kindergarten enrollment and what percentage of those went to universal pre-K? Because if I'm reading this right, the 65% is just it's the applicants and participants divided by the enrollment, but you said they're not necessarily the same kids.
A parent could have chosen after pre-K, they might have moved.
So
they might have chosen to send their child to private school. Both of those are possible scenarios. I don't have it for this.
I was just curious if the district has the data for the actual enrolled students in kindergarten.
I didn't look at it before today.
Okay.
It's in eSchool data.
Okay. Okay, and then on the very last slide, just a quick question. The third option, to maximize availability, would that, I mean, I realize this is not an operational, but is the vision to provide half-day, full-day, a combination of, as one or the other? What is the vision?
I think the decision needs to be made, is it more beneficial to offer half day to everyone or as many children as possible, or to focus on full day for maybe students who have higher needs? That's a decision that would have to be made. It's not one that has been made yet.
Okay. I mean, again, you got to tell me if this is even something that's feasible, but offering a half day at one location and a full day at another location. I don't know what kind of needs are there, needs are there within the district, but is that something that could be considered?
It's everything's on the table at this point, so it hasn't been eliminated as a possibility by any means.
Anybody else? Just one quick question. This last slide, the second part. So it says half day class, AM and PM, right? 108,000. But 3 to 4 classes. So is it 108 times 3 or 4 or?
Right. So if we offered one section of pre-K and it was an AM, PM, and we maximized our grant funding, it would cost the district $108,000 out of the operating budget. If we ran 2 classes, each one would cost $108,000.
Right. Okay.
If we got, I'm making up a number, like we're not going to get there, we don't have this many kids, but if we got to 10 classes, after somewhere around the 4th class, we've run out of grant funding.
Right, exactly.
And so so anything beyond that would be out of the operational budget.
Okay. But it's 108 per class?
Yes.
For an AM and PM?
No, it's
so 2
for the day.
Yeah.
It's 108 for the day.
Okay.
Because it's one teacher and 1 aide is teaching both.
Right, exactly. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I kind of have an oddly formulated question. It's very young. No. So you mentioned that these kids would have the opportunity to benefit from having various different specialists attend to their needs. Would that be something that we would need to budget for in the future, such that making sure that that these specialists had enough time to dedicate both to the UPK students as well as to the current students?
That's an operational piece that we would have to determine if that's going to take place or not. It is not a requirement for pre-K students to have art or music or gym with a specialist. It is an opportunity. We do unfortunately know we have declining enrollment in our buildings, and the declining enrollment could provide some opportunities that just appear in the schedule because of declining enrollment. But that is ultimately a decision we would
Because
make.
I was thinking of it the reverse, like, would people have enough time to divide their attention? And then but then, as I'm thinking about this, children that then qualify for services would get funding through that.
They would get through like
For the-
CPSE. Any
CPSE.
child who gets something through CPSE would still get it through CPSE.
Right, it's just that they could utilize some of the specialists that are in-house, per se, to get that. Is that correct?
Yeah, that could happen. And it's also,
Teachers support, teachers talking to teachers.
Right.
It might not necessarily be like a push-in in the classroom. It just could be us collaborating. Hey, I have a student who exhibits such and such. And what are your tips? You know,
Right.
that back and forth.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? No? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you again. Okay, so we are at, we are at 4.01. This is public participation as to any school district business. This session will last a half an hour, 3 minutes per person. Please step up to the mic, state your name, school affiliation, not necessarily your address, but school affiliation. And again, no comments with respect to any student, staff, teacher, or otherwise pursuant to policy that I enumerated before. Okay, seeing none, I'll close that portion of the meeting. Superintendent's closing comments?
Yeah, just to give the board a preview of what's to come in the next meeting. We'll have an extensive renovation report on the projects that we've gone over and worked on during the summer, and maybe a preview a little bit about what we're looking at during the course of this year. Secondly, will be the beginning of our comprehensive school improvement plans. We'll begin with the high school, and as you might see on our website, the high school has once again been named a reward school, and it's a prestigious honor, so congratulations to the high school. But we'll give Pat the award at that time. And then also the PPS department will make a report, and part of that will be, you know, the services that we provide, but also the costs, and taking a look at those expenditures in greater detail. So some of the, you know, when we look at our budget, somebody referenced that we typically begin that in January. That's true, but we also have some reports along the way, like the PPS report. We'll be talking about the renovations. We'll have the athletic expenditure report on November 1st. So some of these reports that we're laying out will give you kind of a better context in terms of the numbers and the costs of some of our programs. But I just wanted to give you a heads up that we'll have these 3 fairly significant reports, and I would anticipate 10 to 20 minutes for each one of those 3 reports. And I know you have a discussion item that I think will take probably an extensive amount of time at the next meeting as well. But I just want to give you all the heads up on that.
Okay, very good.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, motion to adjourn. Clark, second.
I was gonna say, you guys wanna stay, we can stay. Matt, all those in favor, any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, abstentions. Excellent. Thank you. And thank you all.